Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, and this week joining us from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia is Jacy Ong. Hi Jacy, welcome to the show.
Hi Vasco, thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So Jacy is a big anime fan, and she has found a strong connection between sports anime and her work as a Scrum Master, and we'll dive into that during this week. As she puts it, nothing feels more rewarding than to watch your teams grow and achieve goals they never thought they could possibly achieve. Jacy, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Thanks, Vasco. I think about 6 years ago, that's when I graduated from university. So I did not have any intention of actually even becoming a Scrum Master. I would like to say that it was a lucky accident throughout my entire career of 6 years. So as soon as I graduated, being a graduate, right, you just started to apply to most companies that were hiring, and the first offer that I got was actually for the role of a test engineer. So at that time, me being young and just eager to go out and venture in the working world, I just said yes to that offer, and that basically was history. The rest was history, because in my journey so far, I was lucky and fortunate enough to be able to take on the role of different team members in the development team, if you could say so. So I was a test engineer, I was a functional analyst / business analyst. I was also able to take on the role of a project coordinator, and then eventually transition into a project manager as well. However, along that journey, right, I realized that something was missing, because I always wanted to work with people in a more engaging manner, where I want to watch them grow. I want to be able to develop the people that I work with. So as such, at that time as a project manager, it didn't really feel fulfilling for me at that time. So there was this pivotal moment in the organization where the organization decided to adopt agile, and that was when all the project manager the roles were then transitioned into a Scrum Master. So that was the lucky accident that happened to me, actually. So yeah, it's been almost 2 years, I believe. I've been practicing Scrum, and also advocating agile as well to the team members that I work with. Yep. So this is my story.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of people with that kind of background. So, of course, testing different roles, right? So, test engineer, business analyst, as you said, and then project management. And there's a lot of people who do that transition from project manager to Scrum Master. But at least I know, and I'm sure you do too, that it's not an easy transition necessarily. I don't know if the next story you're going to tell us has anything to do with it, but the next story is, of course, the focus of today's episode. Today's Monday. So we talk about the fail story, the story where you as a Scrum Master, you did your best, but at that time, that just wasn't good enough. So Jacy, tell us that story and walk us through the steps, step by step, what was happening so that we understand your context. And then we'll dive into the insights and the learnings, but walk us through that story.
Okay, I'll be happy to share. So I think if I could reflect back upon my journey so far as a Scrum Master, the failure that I think that I would like to take ownership of the failure as well is when the team that you work with, so for instance the product owner and your development team, as well as the external stakeholders such as management outside of the team, does not have a clear idea on what exactly the role of a Scrum Master is. This may sound pretty trivial, because you have the job description, you have the role and responsibilities laid out normally, right? So when it's stated out line by line, so it's quite difficult to not understand the role of a Scrum Master. But in practice, it happens more frequent than we think. At least for me, at least. So being in my current organization, I've had the opportunity to work with different teams. I also switched few teams as well. So there was always the realignment or alignment with the team on what exactly a Scrum Master is supposed to do for the team, right? They say that as a Scrum Master, you service the team, you service the product owner, and you also have a service to the organization, right? But because of perhaps the different ways of how Scrum Masters in that work with that team engage with those teams, right? So sometimes it's not exactly clear cut or straightforward. So I find myself always needing to explain to the team that, hey, should we align on what the role of a Scrum Master will be, and if there's any expectations that the team has that perhaps I cannot meet, then let us also put it on the table, right? So I say this now, but previously, I think in my previous organization, that was, I think, the biggest failure that I had, because I did not do what I just said earlier.
So
So
what happened when you didn't do what you just said, like the constant alignment on the expectations? What happened then?
there was, I think, a lot of uncertainty in the atmosphere, like in for example, the daily stand-ups. Sometimes the team may look at the Scrum Master and expect the Scrum Master to track the progress, or even assign tasks or stories to the team, right? So those kind of those moments made it uncertain, and it disrupted the working dynamics in the team, because there were expectations that they thought that the Scrum Master should be doing, but actually, as a Scrum Master, we shouldn't be doing that. So those were left in
So
the open.
can give me one example, like what was the team expecting you to do that was actually not part of the Scrum Master role?
A vivid example is taking down meeting minutes for the team for every single discussion and meeting. So that was a bit that caught me off guard, because when the request came to me, like, hey, could you take down the minutes for the meeting and share it with the team later? So in my head I was like, hmm. So that caught me off guard, and of course, me being new to the team, so I complied, because I still wanted to learn how the team works. Maybe this is the arrangement that they've had, so I was complying with it, right? So that is one example. Being a scribe, a meeting scribe for the team.
And of course, when we find that confusion in expectations, or at least the lack of alignment in the expectations, we need to bring it up. And that's something you mentioned you did. So let's dive into this a little bit deeper and walk through the process. Like, how do you now, these days, after you've had this experience, how do you help the teams, the stakeholders, the product owner understand how you can help them as a Scrum Master? What's the usual steps you go through to introduce the role of the Scrum Master in practice to your stakeholders and the team?
So the first thing that I'll do in ensuring that alignment is there is, my go-to is always the Scrum Guide. So in the Scrum Guide, there is a specific section that says that states the Scrum Master, right? So the Scrum Master has three services that he or she does. The first one is to the product owner, to the development team, and also to the organization. So I have a conversation with the team about each of the lines under the Scrum Guide, under the role of a Scrum Master, and then we have conversations about what they understand from it. And from there, we basically discuss and see, does this make sense? Do you think that this probably should not be done by a Scrum Master? So from there, we align on our understanding, and by the end of it, the goal is always to have a mutual understanding within the entire team that this is the role of a Scrum Master, and similarly also for the product owner as well, and also the development team. So that is normally my go-to approach. Yep.
And what have you learned from those conversations? Because there's many possibilities on how they might misunderstand the Scrum Master role, excuse me. And I'm sure by having those conversations, you've kind of started to detect what are the recurring patterns, or in this case, anti-patterns. So what are some of those most common misunderstandings that people have about the Scrum Master role?
I would say the most common one would be mistaking the Scrum Master as a project manager. So that is the most common pattern that I see when it comes to engaging with the team about their understanding of the Scrum Master role. They
So what do they think then the Scrum Master should do if they confuse that with the project manager? Do they think that the Scrum Master should create like a project plan, or how does that go?
Yes, actually, it is exactly quite similar to what you mentioned. They do expect that the Scrum Master to be doing the project planning, assigning tasks to the team, setting up meetings. Which I do not disagree with, because meetings are there to facilitate, right? We're there to facilitate the meetings. However, I think sometimes even getting the project manager to help to estimate as well. So that didn't make complete sense to me, because as a project manager, or even as a Scrum Master, we do not do the work. So how can we possibly estimate the work that is not done by us, right? So these are like the typical misunderstandings, I think, and expectations sometimes from the team.
Absolutely. And I definitely find some of this familiar. And this also highlights why a simple thing like what you just said, right? Like have a conversation about each of the line items in the Scrum Guide about the role of the Scrum Master might be a productive way to, at the end of the day, set some working agreements between the team, the stakeholders, and the Scrum Master.
Yep. I definitely agree with you there. Yep.
Thank you for sharing that, Jacy.
You're welcome.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests help their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.